Hello and welcome to our video today. I recently had my first Biofield tuning session, and going into this, I knew very little about it other than it is about frequency and it is about healing, and it involves tuning forks and a trained practitioner who is able to read or interpret the sounds and the vibrational pitches in the forks, in the tuning forks, to help find or locate where trauma or pain or unresolved issues reside either in the body or in the subconscious. And we'll discuss this further. But the objective to this type of sound healing is to help one release trauma or experiences that have led to certain behaviors or patterns that could be destructive or non serving. And the point is to help one to live life more fully, so to release any negative emotions, behaviors, patterns, etc., to live life fully and from a state of inner peace and well-being. And so today's guest is Wonda Correia. She is a sound practitioner and biofield energy healer. Hey Wanda.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. How are you? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I just want to say before we dive into the the interview that I really have noticed it's been what, a week or not quite 2 weeks maybe since I had my session, and I thought I felt good that day leaving. But a lot has actually transpired since then, so I just feel it feels like I did like this purging afterwards. I had like a slight fever, a cold, but inside I felt like more joy, I felt more grounded, I felt more connected to myself and my life and my purpose, and every day I feel lighter, and I don't know what it is, but I do know what it is. It's that I released some negative, connection in my life that I was unaware of.
Yeah, that's
So
exciting.
yeah, it was exciting, and, can you tell us in greater detail? Because I know my description was brief, but you're the expert. Can you just give us a little tell us a little bit more about what is biofield tuning?
So, Biofield Tuning was actually coined by Eileen McKusick. And so, mine's a little bit different, but it's a lot of the same type of techniques. So, I do the biofield healing and so what it is it's stuck energy in our field. So like your biofield is your energy centers that are outside of your body. So like when you walk into a room and you can kind of feel if somebody's having a bad day or if they're having a great day, like you can feel that energy coming off people one way or the other, right? So that's your biofield. So when things happen in your life, those energies kind of get stuck in that biofield, and you kind of carry it around with it. You'll kind of drag it around with you your whole life, and you don't even know you're doing it. And so it's interesting that people will say, oh, I've had these repeating things happen in my life over and over and over again, and they want to deal with the current one that they're dealing with. But what happens is that was attached to something that happened when they were young. And so if we can go back and identify that, and we understand where the pattern came from, and you come up with some clarity and you come up with the forgiveness to be able to let that go, because most of the time it wasn't done on purpose. I mean, obviously there are incidences where it is was done for harm, but you can go back and release that back then, and then it kind of unravels all those repeating patterns that happened over and over again through time. And so it's just energy that gets stuck, and eventually when you have something stuck, it kind of like pulls at you wherever it's stuck, and it can create illnesses in you because you're pulling against that energy constantly. And so it's like, oh man, I have these shoulder pains, and man, I don't even know why I didn't do anything. Well, it's from the trauma that you're dragging around with you throughout your whole life. And so the beautiful thing is, a lot of it can be healed from that. If there's already, like, if it's too far, A lot of people will have bone spurs or calcium or whatever the case is, and those things have will take time to undo, even though you're not carrying around that trauma anymore, but it does give you relief.
And how did you get into this?
So interesting. I met people that was doing sound healing, and I met people that were using tuning forks, and I thought, wow, how fascinating. So I kind of started researching it, and I saw Elaine's stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if I could hear it. And so I borrowed a tuning fork from a friend that happened to have one, and I'm like, I just want to know if I can hear it. And I was in this group of people, and I just started doing it on them, and I'm like, ooh, I can hear it. Like, I didn't know what it meant, but I could hear it. And so I was like, oh, let's play around with this and see what I can find out. And so I just started asking, and I started playing with it, and just started talking to people like, okay, so is something happening here? Because I've learned that what's closest to you is more current, what's far away is can go into childhood, past lives, things like that. But and then your left side is feminine and your right side is masculine. So just knowing those things, I just intuitively started going with that, and then things would get repeating things would happen. So like uncles, like something would happen with an uncle, something would happen with an uncle, and it was always in the same area. And I'm like, oh, so this is where uncle energy hangs out, and this is where grandma energy hangs out, and this is where mom energy hangs out, sisters, siblings, like after having so many repeating ones in the same places, I just kind of learned where they hang out, or where they show up for me.
Okay, so when you say certain things will hang out in certain areas, and this is for everybody?
Yeah, yeah, because it gives me direction on how to get them close to whatever that trauma is. Because
Mm.
I'm not a psychic, so I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you had this and this is what's going on. Like, it's more empowering if you find it. And so my job is just to get you in the vicinity of it. And once you can identify what it is, then we can work through it to be able to release it. um,
Interesting. So you get signals and then you probe with questions. Is it like there's certain things that you might know, masculine, feminine, grandma, uncle, timeline, and that's kind of where you throw questions out until somebody identifies something.
Correct. And I get numbers. So numbers will just pop in my head and I just say them. So my contract with God Source is that if it comes into my head, I say it. I don't think about it, I don't question it, and I don't try to change it. I try to do it as word for word as I can. And so numbers will pop in my head, and so I'll say, okay, it was something around 16. And if whatever was going around when they were 16. And so once we identify what that is, then we start creating the pattern part. Like, we get to see where that originated from, because
Mm.
it'll, like, 99% of the time it takes them right to whatever it is.
So the tuning fork will resonate a certain frequency that kind of gives you clues. Then you probe with questions and kind of let them fill.
Fill into whatever that age or that year or whatever was going on in that time frame.
Okay, and then I guess what I'm trying to get at is how do you know or how do they know, "Oh, this is what happened to me?" Is it, like, based on, like, emotions come up to the surface or
It's always different.
okay.
Like, it's like, it can be emotional. A lot of times it's repressed emotions. So most of the time it's not something that they've just put it out of their mind, they put it out of their memory bank, and it's gone. But it's still there in the field, because it's hanging on to them. And they don't know why. Most of the time they're like, I don't know what it is. Well, once we get them into that area, once we get them close to it, then they'll be like, oh, it's that. And I've had it go around like for like 20 minutes, looking and no, and they're like, no, and I'm like, wait, what? Like something, it's got to be here somewhere. And then all of a sudden they'll go, oh, it's this, when they come back around to the original number that I gave them.
Okay, yeah, and that's what happened with me. You threw out a number, and I was like, "Nope, I got nothing for you. I don't
Yeah,
know." And then you kind of went somewhere else. I was like
yeah,
telling you a story. Okay, well, this happened and this happened, and then boom, that number just
yeah.
that's what it was. It was just
Yeah, every time. It's so funny. Every single time it'll come up like that. And it'll eventually, and you can't help it. Like all energy workers will tell you, like sometimes we feel like frauds, or like are like, is this really real? And then
uh-huh.
when it comes around and they're like, no, 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 I ain't got nothing, I ain't got nothing, you're like, oh
Mhm.
man, am I am I missing it? And then
Have
all of
you
a
ever
sudden,
had someone where nothing resonated with them that youth would throw out? Never. Okay.
it will come around somewhere.
Okay.
And it's not always exact. So it may have been they were 14, but it'll get them in the vicinity of
Mm.
whatever that is, because I'm not locating it for them. I'm
Mhm.
just getting them there so that they can go back through their mind, go back into their memories, go back into the feelings, and go back into those things. So one of the things that's hard is that when you're triggered by your trauma, your body reacts as if it's happening again in the moment. So you can imagine some circumstances that are, I mean, pretty detrimental. They're
Mhm.
very hard. And so, for me, it's hard for me, it's hard for them, but we only have to go through it one more time. You don't have to keep going through it over and over and over again. Now, that's not saying they can't pick the ball back up, because once we cut the cords, you can pick the ball back up. But for the most part, people are like, I don't want that anymore. And by the time they get to me, they're ready for, because I mean, that's what I ask God for. It's like, just give me the people that are ready for me, ready to do the work and ready to let go, because there's nothing worse than triggering somebody and having them not do the work and staying triggered. I mean, I've only had that happen once. That particular one, she wasn't ready to do the work, and it killed me. It was so hard. And I was like, but I think that was done for me to understand how the channeling works, and how the information comes in, and the attachment that I have to God, to source. And so that and but it was just heart-wrenching for me, to let somebody leave like that, and knowing that it didn't work. And it's only happened to me one time
Mhm.
in the last 6 years. So
Okay, so when you say when they're not ready to do the work, you mean facing the hard or uncomfortable experiences or emotions, that are
yeah,
stuck in them.
yeah. A lot of it is, it's easier to stay in your trauma because it's comfortable, because it's familiar. I mean, you hear people talk about that all the time. And so it's not something that I care to deal with, and because it's too hard on me in the physical. Um, but a lot of times too, I don't remember everything that happens in the session. I'll remember some things because I finally started asking. I'm like, can I remember if it'll help me? If it'll help me, So, but for the most part, I don't remember a lot of people's traumas, because I can't hold all that. One human being can't hold that many people's
Oh,
traumas.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
would be traumatizing for me
Mhm.
myself. So
You have
fortunately,
one life, and that's enough trauma, right?
right, right. So yeah, I'm just like, okay, but if it'll benefit me, or if and what's interesting, like I'll be in one session and they'll let me remember something from somebody else's session, if it'll help them.
Okay.
I won't even remember who it's attached to. I'll just remember the story, and
Mm.
I'll be able to share the story with them. So it makes them not feel alone. Most of the time, most people think that their trauma is the only one like it and there's nobody else out there. I mean, obviously they're all a little different, but at least having the knowledge that somebody else has gone through something similar,
Mhm.
it gives people peace, so they let me to remember things that way sometimes.
Okay, so if somebody is not ready, but they say to you, "Wanda, I want to work on my issues, my trauma. I know I have stuff I need to let go. I'm not ready for a biofield session. What can I do in the meantime to help me get ready? What do you recommend?"
I mean, when they're ready, they're gonna know. They're gonna be ready to release it because they're going through health issues. They're having pain in their body. They're having headaches all the time. I mean, whatever the case is. I mean, usually by the time they get to me, they're done. They're like, I am done. I do not want to deal with this anymore. So and that's what I asked for. So I don't deal with that a whole lot. I do have conversations with people on the phone a lot of times prior to make sure that they're ready, especially if they were referred to me. So I'll have a conversation and I'll kind of explain how it works and what we do and what it's like, and like, because it seriously can not be easy sometimes,
Mhm.
but it's only one more time. Instead of
Okay.
going in somewhere and talking about your trauma over and over every single week, sometimes for decades, like, we're not playing this game. We're getting rid of it this time. I'm not playing around. Now that doesn't mean there can't be layers to it. So sometimes, there's too many layers and we can only get through a few layers or one or two layers, and they'll say, okay, that's all they can handle right now.
Mhm.
And I'll be like, okay, cut it off, and then we're done. But for the most part, I mean, if it's something, real heavy and we get to that root cause, that just, I mean, almost 98% of the people that come in, and when we're done, they'll say they feel lighter. And my human does flip-flops when I hear that, because like, it's, yes,
Yeah, I
that's
definitely felt lighter, and I still feel even lighter today.
yeah, yeah, because you're having experiences
It's
now.
liberating.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely,
And
because
the
you can
funny
let
thing
go.
is, I personally, I can't speak for everybody else, but I didn't know I was holding on to this specific trauma or experience.
Most don't. Most don't. Most are. It's so suppressed and so stuck that they don't even. Most people don't know, and it just cracks me up. They'll say, "Oh, I want to deal with this thing," and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, it doesn't work that way. Like, you don't get to choose, because
Yeah.
otherwise we're going backwards. So
Mhm.
you're going to deal with this thing right now, and then you have to deal with the one before, the one before, the one before, and the one before. But how about we just go get the original where it started and
And be
uproot
done with
that
it.
one, and then this is all going to make sense. All the stuff in between is going to
Mm.
make sense, and you don't have to go through each individual thing. You can go, oh, that was all attached to that one thing. Oh my gosh. And then if something does come up, you can say to yourself, like, oh, was that attached? It was attached to that same thing. So I've already cleared that. I don't need to deal with that. So yay, and you get to keep going. You don't have to get stuck again.
Okay, and then in my session, I had a unique experience, at least for me, where I had a deceased, loved one come through.
Hmm.
Is this common?
Yeah. So I always have to ask when I find things behind people. So when I'm using the tuning fork behind, because one of two things happens. They either stick crap back there that they don't want to deal with, like, I don't want to acknowledge it, I don't want to think about it, and I just want it to go away. So they stick it behind them. And then the other one is loved ones. So past loved ones. And so grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, anybody that's passed, they kind of hang up back there and they're a support system. So it's almost like, hey, I got your back. And so it's beautiful so I have to ask them, because I can tell if it's on the masculine or the feminine side. And if it's in the middle, a lot of times it's both grandparents or both parents. And And so they just have that support system that they can tap into anytime that's on the other side.
Okay. And then you talked a little bit about layers. Sometimes it's denser than other times, depending, what it is. But can you explain a little bit about how the layers work? So is it chronological? Does it work in different ways? Like if I go back, can I expect something to come out that's later on after that experience? How does that tell me a little more about that?
Sometimes it just depends on the situation. If it's a lineage thing, so a lot of times, sometimes people will come in and it's generational curses, the true generational curses. It's not a witch that put a curse on you. It's literally things that are passed down. Those are the curses. They even talk about those biblically. They get passed down for like 7 generations, right? But that's alcoholism, that's molestation, that's those heavy dense things that just get passed down and passed down and passed down, and it's just habitual. And so sometimes it goes into that, and we can clear past karma from family lineage stuff. And when you do that, which is a beautiful work, is to you heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, so you can potentially keep your children from carrying on that line of trauma. and,
Mm.
and
And
yeah.
is it limited to our offspring, or is it more expansive than that? Does it expand to, cousins, nephews, nieces?
It depends on the trauma. It can be in a family line. Like they'll, yeah, because if you have your parents and they have their siblings and they all dealt with the same trauma from the dad or the mom, whatever it was, it gets passed down. And so yeah, cousins can have it, and like yeah, it can get all weird. But unfortunately, you can't clear somebody else's line. They have to do it themselves, so somebody in the family line has to be the one to say, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna let this happen in my line anymore, especially with
Mm.
like alcoholism, those kind of things, because that entity is a booger, and they'll hang out in families and wait for them to screw up to the point of taking control over that family line again. And so it's crazy.
Yeah, so do you, in your experience, is it kind of like clients come to you, they deal with and cut ties with some of their experiences in this life, then they deal with, possibly if there is ancestral or generational trauma.
Mhm.
Is that kind of the end of the line?
No, no, because I mean, it can be. My
Mhm.
hope it is. I have people that are one and done, and I have people um, that have layers of things. So, like I said earlier, they can only handle so much, because they really need to incorporate that information, and they really need to sit with that
Mm.
and be able to heal through that a little bit more, even after we're done. So we always tell people, drink a lot of water, be nice to yourself, and just take it easy for a minute, and just
Mhm.
allow that to integrate. And then I have people that a lot of things come up, like, oh, I've got something coming up that's got me stuck. And before I do each session, that's my ask, is whatever's keeping them stuck in the moment, let's find it and let's help them through that, because then you get that one out of the way, because then they feel like they have momentum. They feel like
Mm.
they can move forward, but then they'll still feel something else and then be like, okay, well, what's this attached to? So I have people that come in, I have repeat customers come in quite often.
Mm. Okay, so it's like we're never actually done, right? It's like we can never learn everything there is in the world, and therefore also with that we can never fully or ever completely heal or be like, "Okay, I graduated with a PhD or whatever the highest degree is. I'm done."
Yeah, it's not a diploma for sure, but you hope that you get to a point where you're not feeling those negative feelings so much anymore,
Mhm.
because I mean, who wants to live their life like that? So my hope is that they get to a point where that doesn't happen as often. If something does surface, then it's like, oh, okay, well, let's deal with this thing, right? But
So
once you get through most of it,
mhm.
like, but you can't have every experience because we've had lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of experiences, and so those can come through sometimes. It's like, um, I've had lots of people come in that are scared of a lot of things, but it was passed down from, like, they were accused of being witches when they were just energy healers,
Mhm.
and so being burned and being, hung, and, just horrid things, and so just to be able to release that is a relief in this lifetime, because we can pull some of the traumas from past lives into this lifetime with us.
Okay. So there's ancestral healing, which is the lineage,
Yeah.
but then there's also potentially past life healing.
Hmm.
And so that's the matrix that is so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
lives to
Yeah.
work through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And
It's
so
amazing.
what can you tell me about past lives and how that plays a role in, this current life?
So, a lot of my understanding is a lot of the past lives, or what I've dealt with, is like you'll come in and you'll be the mom sometimes, or you'll be the daughter, and then you'll flip flop roles, or you'll be different characters in the play, if you will. Like, you'll just be a different character each time. So, because that creates expansion, that creates an understanding, that creates contrast. So everything is about contrast. Everything is dark and light and good and bad. And, every single thing in life is an opposite. So you're constantly getting the opposite. So you can't have anything good potentially without having something bad, because if you didn't, you wouldn't know what good meant. You wouldn't know what good would feel like, because you only have good feelings, right? So you have to have something bad in there for you to understand what good feels like. And
Mm.
so that's kind of life. And once we realize that, it makes things a little easier, because if you're going through something bad, then you can say, oh, okay, what's the opposite of this? Okay, the opposite of this
Yeah.
is something good. So now I have something to look forward to. What is my lesson with this, so I can get to that good feeling faster, because everything is a lesson. So everything's a lesson and everything's the opposite. So when
Everything is an opportunity. So it helps people to look at their experiences as they're not so much a victim, even though maybe they felt like it in the time and maybe it even looked like it, but they are having an experience so that they can grow in a certain way and appreciate. And then when they look back, even kind of appreciate the lesson,
yeah.
even
Oh,
as dysfunctional as that might sound, right?
I I say it all the time. I'm an open book, so I will tell anybody anything, because I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and I'm like, why did I go through those before this, I
Mhm.
would be like, why did I go through these things? Like, if I'm not supposed to do something with it, why did I go through these things? Well, I mean, you go through them for the contrast of it, because I mean, would I change anything? No. No, not
Mm.
now. I mean, and I've had a few things, you know?
Yeah, it gives you a different perspective on your life and how you wanna live, how you wanna be, and the
Yeah.
kind of energy you wanna, put out in the world.
Well, yeah. And with this, what I do here, like, I can relate to so many people, it's not even funny, but it's not all about me and who I can relate to. So the people that come in here with me, most people are lights or energy workers or something, is, and they just don't even know it yet most of the time, which is fun, because I'm like, oh, look at you. Because I can't do it all. Heaven forbid. I don't want to do it all. I want to help ripple ripple out people to help other people. If I
Mhm.
help somebody and then they go help somebody, oh my God, that's how we heal the world. That's how we
Mm.
heal humanity. That's how we heal the vibration of the planet is by the trickling out effect, the rippling out effect.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so exciting.
So exciting, and we need to heal ourselves first, and people a lot of people, or some people might have an issue with that and think that is selfish. I have other people that I need to be responsible for, that I need to help. I'll deal with my stuff last.
Yeah. Well, and you don't get a choice sometimes when you deal with stuff, because I mean I've pretty much dealt with a lot of my stuff. I know how to do this, so I pretty much. But I was in a session one time and something happened, and for her came up, and it triggered a memory for me that I didn't even remember. And I just kind of, I like, hang on a second. I had to sit down and I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? Why? How am I supposed to help her and help me too? Like in the same moment. So
Mm,
it
wow.
waited, it waited for that moment because I was going to teach her how to do it so she could do it on me. So it would put her on her path. And I was like, whoa. So my childhood trauma just popped in out of nowhere. For okay, like
Since you're here, hello, you need to
yeah,
deal with this. Yeah.
yeah. So that was interesting to say the
Yeah.
least. And a lot of times you don't know what you don't know until you're triggered by it. And everybody's triggers are different. And but it's
So, who would you say this is for? Why would somebody wanna do this?
I've had everything across the board. I've had older, I've had younger, I've had men, women, teen, older teens, and like it's for anybody that feels stuck or that's holding on to something. They just need a way to let go of it. And that's all it is, because I tell everybody all the time, there's one of two choices. Two things are going to happen. Either you're going to hang on to it for the rest of your life, and when that ship sinks, you're going to sink with it. Or you can forgive it and let it go and live your life and take your life back and take your power back. Otherwise, they have your power forever and ever. At what
Mm,
point are you done? At what point do you quit giving them the power? Once they
mhm,
understand that a little bit differently, then they're able to let go of it. I mean, is it still hard? Yeah, it's hard, but we usually find that pattern. It's not just a pattern for that person. A lot of times the pattern was for the mom or the grandma, and that's that generational thing that's been passed down, right? And so your mom went through the same thing. She didn't know how to deal with it either. So, of course, she couldn't help you because she didn't know how. She didn't get the tools from her mom, and so on and so forth, and back
and we
until
continue to repeat that vicious cycle.
correct. And
Mm,
once you have that understanding, it's like, oh, shoot. Well, yeah, I can forgive my mom because she didn't know any better either. I mean, did it suck? Did it give permission for anything bad to happen to you? No, absolutely never. Because bad is bad, wrong is wrong, and if it shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't have happened. And
so it doesn't make it okay, but it does kind of, stop the
it takes the
cycle.
sting out of it, yes. And so the way they've explained it to me is like when we're non-physical, we have a puzzle, and so all these souls will come in and say, "Ooh, I'll do this piece, I'll do this piece," and some are good, some are bad, some are dark, some are light. You have to have all kinds of pieces to make a puzzle, right? So they'll come in and all these souls will say, okay. And then they go, okay, have fun. Go put it back together. And so we come down here and we forget all of it and we're floundering around trying to put our puzzle back together. But what happens is when you forgive that, when you forgive that thing and it snaps that puzzle piece into place in your puzzle, it loses its power.
Mm.
Now it's a story. Now it's a story. You can repeat a story. You can't repeat trauma, right?
Yeah, and
Right?
it's always good to have stories to share at, dinner parties, right?
Right?
And when you can share stories, even if they are, uncomfortable experiences, but you release the emotion from it, then it becomes like a lesson. Then it becomes a bigger story that doesn't own you anymore. Now you own it.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's the key to healing everybody else is now what happens is like, so like attracts like, right? Energy. When you talk about energy, like attracts like. So whatever you've been through, you're attracting that kind of person into your life. How many times have we heard, oh gosh, I've kind of been through that same thing, a little different, but I've been through that same thing. We hear that all the time because you're
Hmm.
attracting the same people into your life that have had the similar traumas that you've had. So now that yours is a story, you can repeat it. And when you tell somebody that story, then they can relate to it and go, oh my God, how did you get through that? And then you get to help them. That's that's the goal. That's
Mm.
key to all of this is creating that story so that now you can go tell the story and share and not get triggered by it.
Yeah. So for those that are curious about this, that want to try it, that feel like, oh, I have trauma, I want to release some negative patterns in my life. Is this a single session? Do they uh, book a series? What do you, is this like an ongoing life thing? What do you recommend?
So with each person will be different. At the we'll see how they feel at the end of the session, and then we'll know if they need more sessions or not after that. But yeah, usually we just start with the first one because the first one takes a little bit longer because I have to explain more of how it works. And
Okay.
so the first session, I haven't been able to get out of a first session in 2 hours, under 2 hours, because it just takes that kind of time. Because when we're done at the end, I use the tuning forks, the weighted tuning forks on your chakras and realign your energy centers in your body. And then I have you lay down on the massage table and I play sound for a little bit of all the chakras and all the bowls and the gong and different, musical instruments that kind of help bring things back into resonance. And so we take a little time to kind of, because we've pulled everything apart. We've literally just kind of ripped your energy all over the place and made holes and gaps. And so I like to try and put it back together. And so doing it in person is more preferable for me. But
Okay.
I have done lots of sessions online, so I can do them
Ah,
online
okay.
if it's possible. It's just with the sound, you can't hear the sound. I am working on creating a an audio track that I can send to them to listen to afterwards because sound doesn't transfer when you're on a Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that was gonna be my next question, is can it be done remotely? So that is something that you are currently working on, it's not available yet?
No, I can do the session. I just can't send the audio yet.
Oh, okay,
The
okay.
audio
Yeah.
for the sound. So there'll be a putting together a putting your chakras back together a video or audio
Yeah.
to listen to.
Well, Wanda, this has been great. You gave a lot of really good information. If it's okay with you, as a way to kind of wrap our session, I'd like to ask you some fun, quirky questions.
Okay.
Okay. And whatever you're comfortable with. If I ask you something you don't like it, just say skip. I won't challenge you.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'm
whatever you're
a
comfortable sharing. But what is a non-negotiable routine or a ritual that you cherish and do consistently?
So, heart brain coherence. I don't know if anybody's listened to Greg Braden, but there's a heart brain coherence thing in the morning. It only takes 3 minutes and 33 seconds to set your day moving forward in a positive direction. Just touch your heart space and just go inward for just at least 3 minutes. Obviously, if you could do a longer meditation, that's always good. But for the most part, just at least doing that when you know you've got things coming up that day.
Okay. And what memory stands out to you that either you led you to pursuing or deepening your spiritual connection, or a memory that stands out to you during your spiritual awakening?
So I think the one I told you with, I heard the tuning fork, but prior to that, I had bought the weighted tuning forks, and those are the ones that actually touch you and they vibrate. And I went to an event And I thought, well, I don't have a healing modality. I'll just take these tuning forks and touch them to people, and it'll be cool. They'll feel the vibrations, and it'll just be neat, right? And as I touched the first person, and information popped in my head that wasn't mine, and I was like, okay, that was really kind of weird. Like, am I supposed to say this to her? And I kind of get this resounding yes. And I was like, okay. So I said it to her, and she goes, oh my God, how'd you know? And I went, oh, shoot, I don't know. Like, I don't know what just happened, but okay. Like, I mean, it just kind of freaked me out at first, but then that was kind of the jumping off point for
Okay.
doing this, and realizing that, like, it was a gift, and if I've been given a gift, if God gave me a gift, I needed to use it somehow.
So you're obviously living a passion-driven life. What would you say to others who are seeking to cultivate a sense of purpose in their life or build a deeper connection to spirit?
So that is so beautiful, and some information about that has come up recently for myself and for others. Like, all the answers you ever want are all there. It's whether you choose to tap into them or not. And people say, well, I want to tap into them, but you have to do the work to tap into them. So literally sitting in meditation and asking, people want to go to, like, the end all be all. They want the diploma, and unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Abraham Hicks says you don't want every meal you're ever going to eat all at one sitting, right? So you have to just ask for your next step, because that's what my journey has been, is this evolution of steps. And then I learn something new, something else comes into my field, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And if it's exciting to you, if it feels good to you, look into it. And you may only use part of it, you may not use all of it, of that particular modality, but learn the things that are exciting for you, and you'll be able to incorporate it to come up with your own way of healing and your own lane. It doesn't have to be something that you go get certified for from somebody else, because it's just something that they made up themselves, and they just are giving out a certificate for it, you know?
Yeah, so being willing to explore with no conditioning on it. Just go
Yeah.
do it. Go try it.
Yeah, try it if it feels good. And the people all the time come in here. I'm like, my stuff knows that it can be used. Like, I let people play the gong and play the bowls. Like, if it's exciting to you, try
Yeah.
it. You know, here's a
Yep.
tuning fork. See if you can hear it. Like, I mean, that's what I did, and I literally was spirit guided to everything that has happened in my life, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I wouldn't trade it for a certificate from anybody, because it's mine. It's my journey, and I chose it.
Right. So what is something you are currently obsessed with? And what I mean is it can be a podcast, it can be a book, it could be a person, a place, a new hobby, a new way of thinking. It's just something that is completely consuming you at the moment, but in a joyful way.
So, um, I let things pop up on YouTube. Like, I'll just start scrolling, and I'll be like, "Ooh, that looks interesting," and I'll tap on that, and I'll listen, and I learn stuff from people all the time. So I'm constantly learning, like, ooh, I can incorporate that. Oh, that's a great. I love how they said that. Like, you just get that information wherever it fills you up. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to fill ourselves up. We're here to be happy. We're here to be joyous. We're here to make a difference. We're not here to be stuck. We're not here to be sad. We're not here to be broke. We're here to be abundant, beautiful, joyful human beings having an
Yeah.
existence.
That's beautiful. And what I hear you saying is the universe has an algorithm. Just follow it. Just go down it.
Yes, yes, it does. Like, and it doesn't yell at you. It doesn't say, "Hey, come this way." It's like, "Hey, come here. Come over this way. It's over here."
Yeah. It's
And
a
it's
whisper.
it's a whisper all the time. It's a whisper, and it's just you tapping into it. So that's another plug for meditation. Like, first thing in the morning, if you can, just like sit for 10 or 15 minutes. Don't try and be a monk, because that's not the goal here. we're here to we're here to tap into that knowing. And when you can do that and you get those promptings to do something that you weren't thinking about, that's your guided system, your intuition. Like, we've all forgotten we have our own intuition. We don't have to use somebody else's. We have our own. We just don't know how to tap into it anymore. And so it's just learning how to tap into that and use your own guidance system to navigate through life.
That's
If it's
beautiful.
not fun, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If
Just
it's
say no.
just say no.
Yeah. What is something on your bucket list that you're looking forward to?
Oh gosh. We're going to Thailand in
Oh, wow.
May. So yeah,
This
I
year.
haven't, yeah, it's so
Nice.
near. Yeah, I'm super excited. I got um my passport a long time ago, but then 2020 hit and nobody could go do anything. So I'm like, dunk on it. But
The
now
world
I'm,
is open now.
yeah, we're
Time to
open
go.
now and I get to go and I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I think that's one of the biggest things that the shutdown taught us was, we've been open all along. You made up excuses to do things.
Yeah.
Now we're shut down. And so now when it reopened, you notice like everybody's going everywhere, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
hope that's still continuing with travel and trying new things.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm looking forward to it. I love people. I love new things. I love nature. I love the mountains. I love waterfalls. I love hiking. So, all those things I want to be with Mother Nature. I love that.
Okay. So, Wanda, thank you so much for being here at this interview, but also on this planet and the time and for coming into my life and being a source of light and love. It's been truly a pleasure getting to know you. I think we met about a year ago, maybe longer, but gotten to know each other a little better. Tell people where they can find you.
Our website is soundsofthelight.us, and my roommate and I do sound baths, and on the platform is my Biofield is on there, and so they can go on there and find me there.
Thank you for tuning in. And before we wrap up, it's worth noting that Wanda fosters an environment that feels both secure and welcoming, encouraging growth and emotional release. If you like this type of content, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. And check out some of my similar videos, such as Speed Up Your Awakening and Healing Journey with Lucia Light and How a Sound Bath is Healing.